folks, and welcome to another episode of the Snowy's Camping Show. You are here as usual with Ben and Lauren, and today we have an awesome guest from over the seas. But before we get into our conversation, don't forget to subscribe wherever you're listening to your podcast. Also, if you're with us on YouTube, do the same there so you don't miss another episode. And we've also got our Snowy's Camping Show group on Facebook. If you're not there already, jump on, request to join. We'd love to have you involved in the conversation. So today we are talking camping furniture with our friend Ryan from Zempire. How are you, Ryan?
Doing great. Yeah, thanks for having me.
No worries. So before we get into talking about furniture, I know we've had you here before, but for new listeners, can you just give us a bit of a rundown of yourself and Zempire? So we know who we're listening to today.
Absolutely. So I'm Ryan from Zempire. I'm a product specialist here. So basically anything to do with our products, I'm involved in some way. Everything from the original design and development of those products through to training our retailers and things like that. So Zempire as a brand, we're based in Hamilton, New Zealand. We started about 15 years ago. So we're relatively new. But we kind of pride ourselves in offering high-end premium camping products that kind of are cutting edge and introduce latest and greatest technology into the camping space. So
you guys do some cool stuff like carpets and tents and that sort of thing. Like when you say high-end, you kind of like, you mean like you've got some basic stuff, but you've got some real luxury stuff too, haven't you?
Absolutely. Camping, the game's definitely changed. There's, you can bring a lot of comforts and you don't always have to rough it. That's for sure.
Yeah. And you brought up carpets, which is an interesting point to make, because I would say that we have had over the years a few people who've called up asking for tent carpets, and 100% of the time they're people who have lived overseas as expats for extended periods of time. And it seems as though tent carpets are a thing, but not in Australia, just everywhere else. So I don't know what the deal is with that.
Maybe it'll catch on.
Maybe it will catch on.
Today's episode, though, we're talking a little bit about sort of fancy stuff, because when we brought up the idea of talking about camp furniture, Laura and I are on opposite sides of the fence here, and I kind of went, it's a little bit boring, isn't it? Like it's just a table and a chair and whatever. And Lauren said, well, it doesn't have to be ugly. They've got this really nice furniture you can get now. We can talk lots about it. So
yeah, definitely.
Let's give it a chance.
Because I just think, it definitely camping, just because you go camping and you love to go camping doesn't mean that it has to be ugly. Like seriously, that's just, yeah.
Fair enough.
That's where I'm at. That's where I'm coming from.
Well, I guess who better to talk to than Zempire, because I'll admit they do have some really nice looking furniture.
Like some of the most beautiful stuff, literally.
Well, there you go. Yeah, well, they're selling it up for you there, right?
Yeah, totally. So I guess lead into this one by saying, as I mentioned before, you walk into most camping stores these days and a large portion of the camping equipment available is taking aesthetics into consideration a lot more than it was 10 years ago. In your opinion, have you because I know you've been in and out of the industry in varying capacities for a while, have you noticed a shift as well? And why do you think that is?
Absolutely. It's definitely becoming much more of a thing. I think a large part of it is just how social people are, social media, and people are always taking photos. And for that reason, people are taking a lot more pride in their camping furniture and their setups. It's not just utilitarian. It's creating a home away from home and a space that they can be proud of and can be proud to share and whatnot. So, it's more than just having a seat, but having, a comfortable environment that, is aspirational in some ways. And I think social media is a big part of that push as well. But also just the options are improving every year. So, people want the best thing that they can get, and now they can.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I think probably one of the main changes I've noticed is a tendency sort of towards wood and bamboo and sort of more away from plastics and things like that, which I'm assuming sort of probably sustainability and like the general shift with the climate change debate and environmental stuff, maybe the leaning towards natural resources from that perspective possibly.
Yeah, I'd like to know too. Like I've got plastic furniture, right, and I can leave it outside. So I guess I'm kind of interested to hear your view on the durability and the reason for in terms of longevity, I suppose, of using wooden furniture in your camping equipment, because I'm not sure. I mean, I'm really interested to hear what you've got to say about how well the bamboo tops and those sort of things perform that you're using in your furniture nowadays.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, using products like wood and bamboo, there's a lot of like design and production benefits to it. Wood is a durable material. It's also sustainable, as has been mentioned, but it also can be formed into just about any shape, whereas there's some kind of key limitations to something like a metal tube, or, if you're looking at something like plastic, there's molding charges and complications with that. So wood is definitely a very flexible option from a design point of view, but also from the consumer point of view. I think it's really attractive, and it's gaining traction because it's different and it's attractive, like we were leading into before. And it also offers kind of a more of a warmer and comfortable feeling compared to something like metal or plastic. So it kind of just offers something new and different and more inviting in a lot of ways. Ben, you mentioned durability, and I mean that's a good consideration, because a lot of people will think I need something that's steel, or something that leave out in the rain all the time and it's going to be fine. But when you think about wood actually, no, it's not as strong as steel, but it does have a really great strength to weight ratio, and it has some kind of inherent benefits compared to metal or plastics, like it doesn't conduct heat, so it's not going to get hot if it's sitting out in the sun. It's also not going to rust as well. So there are some kind of benefits inherent in the material over something like metal or plastic. Plastic can also melt if it gets too close to heat as well. So each of the materials will have their strengths and benefits, but wood has some good unique characteristics compared to the other things that are available.
Okay.
And you're talking about your strength to weight ratio and things like that. How important, when you guys are designing your sort of wooden bamboo furniture range, is the overall product weight taken into consideration, or how important is that for you guys?
Yeah, it's definitely a consideration. I mean, after all, we make camping furniture. It needs to be lightweight and portable. And you will find that when weight is the absolute priority, for example, products that are designed for backpackers, tramping, aluminum's probably still the best option in terms of absolute strength to weight ratio. Mm-hmm. But when you're talking about camping, where you're bringing it in with a car, it's more looking at that balance of function and features, along with having something that's packable and lightweight. And wood strikes that really nice balance between those options. And it has some other great benefits as well. Wood, particularly bamboo, is naturally antimicrobial. Mm-hmm. So it's not going to grow bacteria, and it's food safe. So it makes a great option for things like tabletops and cupboards and things like that. And as we mentioned before, it won't rust like something like a steel frame chair would.
Mm. What about leaving it out in the rain? If I leave my table out overnight, and if it's a night where a bit of dew builds up, I'll get dew on top of the table, and it's just plastic. What I use at the moment, it's got a plastic top on it.
Yeah, I don't think people would intentionally leave their furniture out when they know it's just going to be a downpour, but it's more like those, if you're leaving it out overnight and it rains unexpectedly, or if it gets super wet from, like you say, the dew.
Yeah. So is there, I'm assuming it's mainly bamboo tops. One in front of us here is a bamboo top. I'm assuming it's got a lacquer or something to it, but what do you recommend? Is there, do people need to treat that tabletop differently in terms of leaving it out in moisture than they do, say, a plastic tabletop?
Yeah, that's a good question. After all, it's a camping product. You need to be able to use it outdoors. And like you said, there will be a lacquer, and they're definitely fine to be exposed to moisture and UV light and all kinds of things. They're built to last. But to get the best performance out of really any product, it would be definitely advised to not pack it away wet, not to leave it out in sun being unused. So we'd recommend to store it dry and away from UV light to get the best long-term performance. And that would go for any product, even like a metal framed chair. even if it has something like powder coating to reduce rust. If you don't look after it, it's not gonna last the long term.
Okay. Now, you mentioned aluminium before, but it seems like I think most of your frames you'll use an aluminium frame combined with, the tables are a timber top for the most part. Is there a reason? Is the rust element why you would choose aluminium over steel, or do you have a preference as to why you go one way or the other?
Be a variety of factors. Aluminum, as mentioned before, has a really great strength weight ratio. So if you want to have a product that's both strong and lightweight and packable, aluminum is a great option. And then when you add in those wooden elements, like on a tabletop, the top, you get the benefits of being food safe as well as naturally heat resistant, kind of thing. So being able to avoid rust and being lightweight and packable is kind of a lot of our considerations when developing new furniture.
Okay.
I have a question. You guys, in between your V1 and V2 furniture range, I think I don't know if I've got this around the wrong way, so I'm going to look like a right twit if I've got it wrong. But your V1s seem to have square tubing and your V2s have round. Did I get that right? Or have I got it around the wrong way?
The other way. So some of our newest tables have been updated to having square legs.
Okay. Yeah. And so that obviously I'm just thinking is to improve longevity and overall strength.
Yeah, overall strength and stability, kind of thing. You know, we've always had square tubes on our round table, and not only that, it also had slightly flared out leg design, and we found that was just a really great offering so we brought that into our square tables as well.
That had round legs. Round table, square legs, square table, round legs.
It's all confusing. You say flared out. Do you mean the legs flare out a bit? Is that what you meant by that? Or did I miss something?
Yeah. Sorry, I wasn't completely clear on that. But yeah, I mean, when you're designing furniture for camping, that's lightweight and portable. You also want it to still be stable and built for the task. And we found basically just very slight flaring out of the legs actually made a huge difference without adding any weight penalty to the table. So
that's really interesting.
Yes, I was going to ask that exact question because I think you can go through all the tables that we've got in the Snowy stores, and a lot of them look really cool. They've got adjustable legs and all these things, and they fold up small, but then when they're set up, they wobble around a lot, and you wouldn't want to sit at it. You'd have drinks and stuff all over the place. So yeah, I guess there is always a trade-off between weight and stability. So I guess that's a key factor for customers to look out for, is maybe a flared leg just helps with that. And it makes sense if you think about it. The angled legs give it that bit of extra stability.
The other thing when we're talking about sort of stability and factors affecting it, you guys have got a couple of sort of single piece furnitures like your pantries, which I absolutely love because they're gorgeous. But anyway, they're obviously like a single piece pantry. What are your considerations in terms of when you are developing a product that's, like a one-piece product like that with stability and longevity and all the componentry and things like that? Because it's obviously quite different to the standard.
Yeah, I mean, camping cupboards have been around for quite a while, and I think some of the earlier designs were really quite a pain to set up. It could be quite a process, or they weren't very stable. So basically our goal is to offer a product that not only looks good, but it's also really easy to use and is functional. And if you're able to make a product that doesn't have removable pieces, it eliminates that concern of losing things or just extra steps. And we found that as technology and design has improved, it's actually not only solved the issue of complexity, but it's also still very stable as well. So kind of a win-win.
I got pictures of Lauren's campsite because you just cook out of the campfire, right? And you walk around in bare feet, but then you've got this really nice furniture in your campsite. Sorry, sort of brief aside there. I'm trying to picture what your campsite looks like. But anyway, I do have a question around, I think a common question we get with all tables is, can I put a stove on this table? Now, we always caution around it because I think any table that can melt or be burnt could potentially be impacted by a stove being on top. But I think, and I'm interested in your thoughts on this, I think for the most part, a stove sitting on a table, heat rises, right? So unless the burners are really close to the table, for the most part, you're safe with a stove on there? Or what do you guys recommend in terms of a stove on top of your tables?
Absolutely. So yeah, the majority of our tabletops are made of bamboo. And as long as the stove is being used as it's intended, using it correctly, you should be definitely safe. And it has some real benefits compared to something like a plastic tabletop, which could melt, or even a metal tabletop that could heat up and burn you as well. So as long as there's not a direct flame or anything in contact with the wooden table, it actually is a great option for cooking on top of, in addition to the naturally antibacterial properties of bamboo. So it's a great food preparation and cooking surface for sure.
I'm super interested from like a product design perspective, from when you've got it on paper, and I'm assuming you would build some sort of prototype, how much or how do you guys sort of, I guess, test that out before you decide this is exactly right, or, your tweaks and bits and pieces? Do you have a process like that?
Yeah, I mean, all kinds of different things, and it depends on what the product is, obviously. But there are obviously usability factors. So we just want to test out, make sure, is it easy to use? Is it simple? Getting feedback from people who weren't involved in the design process. Because sometimes when you're actually developing a product, it all makes sense because that's how you designed it. But someone who doesn't know what to do with it. So I often like to use my wife, for example, as a guinea pig, and I just say, here's a product, give it a try, and let me know what you think. It gives me honest feedback, and if it can pass that test, it's a win for sure. But apart from that, it also kind of needs to be able to stand up to the rigors of camping. So things like testing it for weight testing. I think we'll get into that a little bit later, but we do have a different process for coming up for weight ratings and things for different pieces of camp furniture.
Mm-hmm.
I think we can move on to weight ratings though, because I think chairs in particular, we talked about tables mainly so far, which do have a weight rating, but like some wobbly tables will say they've got 150 kilo weight rating, and I'm not sure who's putting 150 kilos on their camp table. But how is that tested? Because it's obviously not a dynamic test, right? It must be a static test, because if you put 150 kilos on some tables and then give that 150 kilos a push, that table's probably going to crumble very quickly under that weight because of the dynamic sort of forces there. So, and I don't think there's a standard in this either. How has that all come about, both for tables and chairs, I suppose?
Yeah, it is a tricky one because there's not a standardized way of measuring those things throughout the industry. So you can't necessarily compare two different brands in that way, because like you said, one might be a failure test. They load up a table until it just simply buckles and fails. And they say that's the weight limit. But that's not very useful or very helpful for the consumer. So our point of view is to always give a useful and functional weight limit. So when it comes to a table, it would be a static test until that is still usable. We don't want our table to be unsafe to use or really wobbly. But chairs is another one, because you actually have movement. You're getting up out of the chair, you're sitting down in the chair. So a static test doesn't tell the whole story. And so we actually will do drop tests from a meter height into the chair, because that's simulating actually the weight being sit into a chair.
Oh, right.
Wow. Okay. I feel like I'd like to do one of those tests. That would be really fun.
Just start leaving you up and dropping you into a chair.
No. I mean, I'm imagining kettlebells. You guys will just stand around on benches with like kettlebells and something crazy like that.
Like that.
Yeah.
So for us, if we say a chair is rated to 120 kilos, that means a person who weighs 120 kilos can use this chair, and they should be safe. Not that you can gently put this weight onto it and it may or may not be safe. So, and another thing to keep in mind with those weight ratings is that there are other factors here. Those weight ratings are assuming that people are using a chair as is intended. They're sitting in the seat, not sitting on an armrest, for example. our armrests should be able to take the weight of, pushing up and getting out of a chair, but not necessarily sitting on them. So those weight ratings, at least from Zempire's point of view, should be a functional standard that's repeatable as well. You should be able to expect that your chair is going to last for the life of the product.
I think you've touched a few times now on use things as expected. You said it was stoves as well. And by stoves, you mean you're not using a massive pot on there that's capturing a lot of heat underneath and causing damage to the table. And with chairs, it's not putting 120 kilos on the arm of the chair, because that's not where the 120 kilos is supposed to sort of sit. And I'm assuming using it on reasonably stable ground is sort of assumed there as well. If you've got 3 legs on the ground and you're rocking back and forward, you're probably going to shorten the life of your chair or your table even in that respect. So, and I think you do have a lot of tables now, and I'm pretty sure most Zempire ones do have usually an adjustable foot or something somewhere, so you can try and get it sort of level, which is going to help with both the stability, longevity and usability of your furniture.
What about things like materials in your chairs? How do you select? Like, do you have a process that you go through to determine the best materials and what you're gonna, I don't know, like from a fabric? I don't make camping furniture, so I'm not exactly sure what I'm asking here. But in terms of like, how do you choose what sort of fabric you're gonna end up going with?
That's a great question, and a lot of it's just down to experience. We've been making camp chairs for a long time, and we kind of know what works and what weights of materials can work. And you will find that across a lot of our different products that they'll actually use very similar materials. So you might find, in our camp chairs using similar materials that are found also in our stretchers. And part of that's for that. We've tested this product. It's been used in the market for several years. We know it works, so we'll use this same material. But the other thing is that we want our products to match each other. We want them not only to be a great product standing alone, but a product that can be used in a system and work really well together. So I would say kind of just that experience of using these products and having them in the market for years is kind of a good starting point.
So does that mean that you guys, essentially the fabric you use is Zempire fabric? It's not like a generic fabric that you've picked and gone, oh yeah, we'll use that one. It's one that actually gets made for you?
It'll depend product to product, but you will find even some of the products, there'll be little Zempire logos imprinted onto it kind of thing. So not necessarily that we custom developed every product but we have hand selected it and in some cases developed and modified it further specific for our product line.
Yeah, that's cool.
I've seen a few chairs come out recently, and I'm pretty sure Zempire have got some that actually use wood for their frame as well. How does that, I think the perception might be it's not as strong as steel or alloy maybe, but how, is there a trade-off with a wooden frame on a chair? Is it, because it looks nicer, but I guess steel, you always think steel's stronger, it's going to last longer, but do you have issues with your wooden frames?
Yeah, and I think a lot of it will go down to, how it's being used. So steel isn't a solid piece of steel. It's usually a very thin piece of tube. And because steel is such a strong material, and aluminium for that matter, you can get away with very thin walls and make it quite lightweight and things like that. Whereas in our wooden frame furniture, it's actually a solid piece of wood. And it's not as dense, so it's still relatively lightweight. So it's basically just because it's a different kind of material, it's used and applied quite differently. And yeah, getting a solid piece of wood can be comparable in terms of strength and durability compared to, a piece of steel tubing with thin side walls. So, we definitely wouldn't put something out in the market that we didn't think was up to the task. And kind of as we mentioned earlier, there's always trade-offs there's trade-offs and benefits for each material, but wood we find strikes a really nice balance between that kind of strength to weight as well as the other benefits of those natural materials.
I guess it comes down to the fixing of the brackets, and I know the brackets on the table in front of us here. It's a decent steel bracket that feels like it does the job. And there's some furniture I've seen that maybe the wood looks nice, but the brackets and the fixings maybe look a little bit sketchy. But I I guess is selling the Zempire brand a bit here, but I have found that most of the hardware on your wooden stuff does seem to be pretty well. And obviously from what you're saying, it is well considered as well that you're not just using a bit of nice timber just for the look. It's also got to be functional and strong.
I do sort of feel like maybe a lot of this interview is us going, Ryan, this is so great. Zempire do this so well. But one thing I do want to mention is a lot of brands, when you buy a piece of camping furniture or a chair or something along those lines, you just get this storage bag, and it's within a silly storage bag. Damn it! Sorry, we'll bleep that one out. But yeah, you get a storage bag, which obviously is an afterthought. It hasn't been considered at all, and a lot of the time you'd be lucky if it lasts a couple of uses. But that's definitely not the case for you guys at all.
Yeah, I mean, if we're going to put that Zempire brand logo on it, it needs to live up to, our expectations of quality and awareness. And like you said, those final touches and details, like having a good quality storage bag, makes a big difference. So the majority of our furniture actually uses zippered storage bags because we just find that they're easier to get in and out of compared to like a drawstring storage bag. And they look nice and they work well together as a system all together. And, we actually want it to be useful and functional for the customer rather than being an afterthought, as he said. Yeah.
Yeah. And obviously that's going to increase the longevity of your product as well if it's being stored in something that's up to the task of protecting it long term as well.
So I do feel like this is one episode where we try not to be biased with anything that we do. And I feel like we have talked a lot about how good Zempire furniture is here, but in all honesty, it is really nice looking and what comes across as well-made furniture. I personally haven't used a lot of it myself, but just going through the range in the store, it is really good. So
I think it is, though, as a consumer and a customer as well, bearing in mind some of the smaller elements of a product and a design that you might not necessarily consider when you're first buying something can often really shine a light on the overall quality of the product and the brand that's built it and how they choose to back their product as well. Because when you see small design elements that have been thought of in the process, or things like storage bags and what have you, that can really give you the confidence that you're buying something that's going to last you a while, and from a brand that's often willing to sort of back up the stuff that they make as well.
Yeah, even little bottle openers in underneath your tables. The one in front of us got a little bottle opener there. I guess that could be a cost-saving measure for you, but it's a very handy feature that you don't cut corners on, do you?
Yeah.
So what about sustainability, Ryan? Have you guys obviously using timber and stuff is kind of going down that sustainability path? Does Zempire have a sort of a sustainability policy, and does the timber furniture form part of why? Does the timber furniture form part of that policy that you've got?
Yeah, well, sustainability is definitely a question I think that's on a lot of people's minds. From certainly Zempire's point of view, it's a huge focus of us, especially moving forward. But also consumers, people are wanting to make better choices. They understand resources are limited and there is an environmental impact on everything we do, even down to the products that we buy. So certainly using materials like wood and bamboo, which are renewable resources, is a huge part of that. But the other part of it is just kind of our design philosophy of making high quality products that are designed to last. They're not disposable products. And I think camping furniture can sometimes fall into that category of being so inexpensive that it's almost single use. So you buy it for a particular event, throw it away.
Definitely.
Whereas, our goal is to make something that looks good and you actually want to use it and you can get a lot of good life out of it. And that all plays into that overall sustainability focus that we do have moving forward.
You guys are really good with spare parts as well, just because I deal with a lot of the spare parts inquiries and things like that at Snowy's, and a lot of brands don't necessarily offer you the option of providing parts for people to repair their own gear. So it's I know that you guys do, which is awesome.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Well, I guess that forms part of sustainability too. Don't ditch it, repair it. So I think that leads a little bit onto my last question, and that's maintenance on camp furniture. I think chairs is the one that comes to mind in particular, where usually chairs, like folding camp chairs, will have a bolt or something at the bottom joining a couple of parts of the frame. They seem to be the parts that quite often either come loose or corrode over time because you've stuck it in the water at the beach or something like that. So what do you recommend in terms of maintenance? I guess most people think of a camp chair as being maintenance free, but there are little things you can do to help the longevity of that. And, to me, one of those things is just check the nuts and bolts and make sure they're all done up and make sure they're not corroding, or give them a rinse after you've used it. Have you got anything else you can add for other users to get the longest life they can out of their furniture?
Those are some good points. You're absolutely right. Those are often the areas that are the biggest problems. And I think one of the biggest culprits is definitely moisture. If you're packing away your any product wet for long-term storage, you might pull it out later on to find that that water's done some damage, and particularly in those small joints. And so it's important to check those when you are packing them away, because even if the rest of a chair, for example, is dry, there might still be some moisture hanging around in those things. Keeping that in mind, and also just general storage. Storing out of direct sunlight, because UV damage can play a huge role in products and whatnot, and as well as staying away from harsh chemicals and things like that. Because you want to get the best life that you can out of any purchase, for sure.
I had more questions than I thought I would have about camp furniture.
Yeah.
But I think
You're going to go and buy something beautiful now?
I might do.
I think we converted you with the fairy lights, didn't we? So
I know.
Now
not the fairy lights yet. Maybe a bamboo table, but I'm not going fairy lights.
I'll make you pretty.
I'll
make you pretty yet, Ben.
If you use one of those stools we talked about, I'll buy myself some fairy lights and tell you what, do your deal.
Oh, wow. That's really pushing it for me.
Hey, thanks again, Ryan, for joining us. It's been a great chat today around a topic that I didn't think we'd be able to elaborate much on, but it's great to know the background of why you make the choices you do with your furniture range. And for our listeners, please jump out there and check out the range, because it is a really nice range of gear to glamp up your campsite. Yeah,
and I hope we've maybe converted some of our older school listeners who will probably be like, camp furniture doesn't need to be beautiful. No, it doesn't need to be, but it can be. So maybe take that into consideration next time you need to upgrade. But thanks so much for being with us again, Ryan. It's been really great to chat to you.
Absolutely. Always happy to talk to you guys.
Awesome. All right. No worries. Take it easy, mate. Well, thanks so much for joining us for another episode of the Snowies Camping Show. As mentioned at the beginning of the episode, don't forget to subscribe on YouTube if you're watching us, or wherever you listen to your podcast app, and jump onto our Snowies Camping Show on Facebook as well. If you've got any furniture questions or any questions for Ryan at Zempire, just let us know there and we'll get back to you pretty soon. Thanks so much for joining us again.
Thanks. We'll see you next time.
Catch you later, folks.
Bye.